Don't let the ghosts make you their next victim. These 10 tips will help you start Phasmophobia off strong in 2025. Whether you're a newer player or someone with a bit of experience, I hope everyone can learn one new thing in this video. And if you end up finding this video helpful, please consider leaving a like or even subscribing. And now, let's jump straight into it. The first tip I have is actually a guide to communicating with your dead teammates. Whether you're playing with randoms or just using the in-game voice chat with your friends, someone will inevitably die and you won't be able to communicate with them. Or so you think. Usually, people decide to regroup in the truck, and luckily, dead players will still be able to hear their surviving teammates. Just grab one of the clipboards in the truck if the survivors are ready with some questions, and then you can either throw the clipboard on the left side in the light on the desk to indicate yes, throw it on the keyboard to indicate maybe, and then throw it on the mouse or the right side to indicate no. And if you're newer, this is a pretty universal thing in the game. It's not something I'm just making up. So if you ever die with some randoms, this can be a great way to convey a lot of information, and make sure you look at the ghost after you die because maybe you can catch something like speed or specific ability. Just know there are a few ghost abilities that a dead player cannot see, like the Obake shapeshift during a hunt, so just keep that in mind. My next tip is to be wary of stairs during hunts. These can almost be a death trap. The ghost's footsteps are going to be either muffled or simply impossible to hear. And there has been so many times where a ghost seemingly appears at the top of the stairs and kills me. My advice is to try and keep track of the ghost's location and be mindful of where it could come from. Maps like Edgefield, where it has multiple stairs, it can be very easy to die. So just make sure the hunt is completely over before leaving your hiding spot. And if you're unsure, just wait it out because it's better to be safe than sorry. My next tip is a useful trick with the motion sensor. And I'm a bit embarrassed to admit this, but I literally never knew until recently that you can click the tier 2 motion sensor, and it actually emits a cone shape that tracks the direction of the movement. And I really like using motion sensors. I feel like a lot of people kind of sleep on them, and yes, they're needed for objectives, but even outside of that, tracking ghost movement is super helpful because some ghosts like the mayor will roam into darker rooms, but it's also great to pinpoint the exact location or area a ghost is roaming around, especially later into the game when the ghost might hunt. It's obviously nice to just know where the ghost is at. Tip number 4 is figure out a Jinn before a hunt. And the Jinn has a unique ability where if the breaker is on during a hunt, it will have an increased speed with a line of sight within a certain amount of distance. But did you also know that it has another ability which will lower a player's sanity by 25% if the Jinn is within the same room or 3 meters of a player and the breaker is on? If you put an EMF on the fuse box and the Jinn uses this sanity drain ability, it will produce an EMF 2 reading or possibly EMF 5. And if you notice the ghost did not interact with the breaker and the EMF is going off, it could be the Jinn using its hidden ability. Speaking of hidden abilities, there are a couple ghosts that have lesser known abilities that are close to impossible to identify unless you already know about them. As I just mentioned, the Jinn has a special sanity drain ability, and the Phantom will drain the player's sanity by 0.5% per second within pseudo line of sight during both hunts and ghost events. And pseudo line of sight just refers to whenever you hear your heartbeat during the hunts and the ghost events, not necessarily having direct line of sight. And this is completely separate from the normal sanity drain that occurs if a ghost event comes in contact with the player. The next tip is that custom difficulties are great for maximizing XP, and custom difficulties is a great feature that unlocks at level 50, and you will also permanently unlock this even if you prestige once you hit level 50. And it's great because you can tweak so many different things of the game however you like while maximizing the XP and money you get. It's easy to change around a few minor random settings, and the custom difficulties is an easy way to get way more money than just the default difficulties like Nightmare, while also maintaining things like 3 evidence. And it's just a great way to get better at the game in my opinion. You can increase things like sanity drain, reduce the amount of hiding spots, and the game will still play out similar to the easier difficulties anyway, so you might as well be making more money and getting more XP. My next tip is audio is key to mastering this game. and I've mentioned audio a few times before, but it is honestly one of the most important things to master, whether it's finding the ghost room, recognizing a pulsy explosion, listening for ghost speeds, etc. It's as important or more important than things like visual cues in my opinion. Mastering audio just helps you pinpoint where the ghost is or might be, and it plays a huge role in game sense, and I feel like it separates the more casual players from the more advanced players. And my next tip is that some evidence takes forever. An underrated thing to prioritize is very quickly getting the dots, thermometer, and ghostwriting book into the ghost room. Something like dots is super easy to miss, so trying to put it down early, and then while you're waiting and testing for evidence, maybe you'll catch a glimpse of it. And it's kind of similar for freezing temps. It takes so long for the temperature to drop in the ghost room that you want to get it down early and then just keep checking it throughout the game. My next tip is no timer handy, no problem. Certain ghosts will require a timer to distinguish between ghosts, and you might have noticed there isn't a stopwatch in the game. Something a little more unconventional to use is the parabolic microphone, as it has an in-game timer. Now the tier 1 you're going to be out of luck with, but the tier 2 and 3 parabolics have a timer that runs when the parabolic is turned on. And I know it is just easier to pull out your phone and use a timer on it, but hey, it's a cool little trick you can try if you'd like. And my final tip is to always go with your gut on the ghost. If there's ever a situation where you're 99% sure of something, just go with your gut. Even the most advanced players are still learning new things about this game, so it's not at fault of anyone misunderstanding something in the game. But there is a lot of misinformation and misunderstandings of how certain ghosts work or how certain abilities work. And I'm not necessarily saying don't trust your teammates, but I'm saying that you should trust your own reliability of knowledge, especially if you're almost certain of something. I feel like in a game like this, it's easy to get talked out of your original thoughts. So I'd say if you're almost sure of something, just go for it. And I think that about does it for this video. I hope you're all having a great start to the new year, and thank you so much for watching.